Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at my bolt action / K47 collection, and I'll be giving you my thoughts on the game.
Scruffy Crow.
Alright, so I've just had a joyous few minutes getting all this stuff laid out. I think sometimes as collectors we forget how these collections end up. So this is more points than you'll ever need for Konflikt 47. And more than enough points for me to play just bolt action. So I'll start by taking you through roughly what we've got here. Alright, we'll start at the back over here. We have my artillery, starting with a 6-pounder and a bombard, which I know is a sort of a bit of a alt history weapon. We've got a medium machine gun, mostly just used for playing bolt action over here. So then on the back row we've got this carrier, and continuing on the back row we have my version of one of the K47 tanks, whose name escapes my tongue right now. We've got sort of transport, we've got spare turrets to turn my Konflikt 47-esque tanks into regular bolt action ones, one of which has suffered some damage recently, which I only just noticed. We have a Sherman Firefly. I picked this guy up before I really before I really planned the army out. He doesn't get much use these days. I have a whole squadron of Comrail Telsars. This is for tank wars mostly, because you can't put 3 normally in a normal game. I have my Comet over here. So these were rolled out about the right time to take part in Konflikt 47 type action, though he's a bit new for bolt action. It's a resin model, whereas the rest of the tanks are plastic. We've got another transport here, unpainted this time. This was a cheaper one I picked up, and we're probably going to do a bit of conversion work on this. Hiding behind the Comet, we have my free, normally forward commander, with his little smoke plume that's seen better days now. In the middle here, we just have my standard Tommies, all armed with rifles, with a few submachine guns and light machine guns. And off to the left of them here, we have my little commando squad. They normally rock around in the little carrier. I use them for little mission objectives. And they're usually led by this little kit bash conversion of Mad Jack Churchill. Coming further forward, we have this little trio here. That is my vampire hunting sergeant. He's the first guy as a leader, being followed around by a guy toting 2 machine guns, and this guy toting a crossbow, which I thought was a nice little thematic, kind of crazy vampire hunting unit for when I'm playing K47. Almost crazier than that, in the middle here we've got Churchill himself, flanked by a couple of British bobbies. That's for the scenario on some of the alt history Project Sea Lion stuff. If I ever needed a higher officer in K47, you know he's going to get an outing. Further down here we've got the 2 heavily armoured Galahad units. They've got the full knight helms, and I think they look pretty cool. Pretty solid little space marines. Okay, so down here we have my walkers, and that's 2 guardians. They're versions of the Coyote, which is the American one, but with flamers. They're really useful in game. Weirdly enough, one's metal, and weighs a lot more than this one, which is resin. And then at the back here we have my Grizzly, which provides some heavy support, and is also quite good at smashing up tanks. As we move across, so we've got my heavy infantry, and we have my automated infantry, who hate being on this board, because this board's kind of spongy, and these guys are very top heavy. So I'll get them stood back up. So these have a mix of heavy and medium machine guns, which means they can put up a lot of firepower, but they aren't always as reliable as I'd like. They're backed up by my Merlin, which I haven't finished painting yet, and he has also got AI technology. And right up the front here we've got my automated carrier, which has not seen a battle yet, and a pair of these automated artillery platforms. And finally in the middle here we've got 3 sets of dogs and handlers, which I haven't even got an undercoat on yet, so they'll be getting their own video. But one thing I forgot to mention was my aerial observer here, supported by my little Spitfire. I've still not used an aerial observer in the game yet, but this will be the sort of token I use to show where that bombardment's coming down. Much like I use this flare token to show where my regular bombardment's coming down. Okay, so there we have it. There's the whole army, which represents quite a few years of putting these guys together. and it's had a mixture of the bolt action and the K-47 stuff. And I'm pretty happy with the way stuff came out, but as you can see there is still plenty of little bits and pieces that need doing. I think one of my most impressive feats is possibly that I get pretty much all of that, apart from the Cromwell platoon, in this case. So there's the tanks. Plane in the flight stand, disassemble, which is the reason why it's such a tiny plane. He fits in there. We've got one sheet of foam with the bulkier models in, and then I don't quite have room for all the plasticky bits, but they tend to go to a slot, and they all fit in as well. Which is probably why I've lost so many rifle fronts. And I usually used to cycle 2 or 3 miles to my local wargaming club with this little satchel strung across my back. So it's a kind of a surprise that these models are in such good nick as they are. So I've moved all of the unfinished stuff to my sort of physical painting queue, my physical to-do list, and you can expect to see some videos with these various bits and pieces in the coming months or so as part of my Warlord winter. What I wanted to talk about now was the rest of the aspects of the game. So here's the contents of my nice big velvety dice bag. I think this is an old jewellery bag. It's nice and big, you can get your hand in, which is important for using these order dice, which I think are the key to what makes this game good. I love the order dice system. I came to Konflikt from playing a lot of War Machine, and I really enjoyed how tight and sort of crunchy the rules were in War Machine. And I came into Konflikt and I got that similar sort of tightness. Everything sort of works. There's no vagaries really. It's quite a nice tight rule system. It's quite tactical as well, and I think the order dice system is the key to that. Which is why I was so excited when Warlords of Aeron came out. And like I mentioned in my Warlord Winter video, the reason why I went hard into all these games. I also want to show off my special tank dice. I've got a Churchill, a Cromwell and a Comet here. And I use these for my tank dice rolls, so they pretty much always roll ones for me. What I should mention as well is the pin system is also pretty cool. And it's like nothing I've used in any other rule system. And obviously the game wouldn't work without it, and I like the idea that even without doing damage to a unit, you can more or less put it out of action, or at least make it substantially less effective, just by piling on these pins. So one of the main draws of the game for me, and what kept me coming back, was how neat the rules are. So I'm a big fan of the rules, but I'm also a big fan of the setting. So this whole sort of diesel punk alternate history is something I've always kind of been a big fan of. I'm a big sort of steampunk fan. And I've always enjoyed that sort of Wolfenstein alternate history type bits and pieces as well. So when I saw this existed, as I said in my Warlord Winter video, even before they actually, Clockwork Goblin sort of fully teamed up with Warlord and really released this, I'd seen some of their stuff just because I really like that alternate history look and some of the sort of World War II mechs. And it's probably the mechs that's still one of my favourite models. Which is why I went British actually, because I got to use those cool American mechs, but also my little tin Tommies, which I'm a big fan of. If you're not familiar with Konflikt as well, so this is the little mini rulebook you get in the starter set, but all the stuff's in there. They've also done 2 extra supplements, introducing the Japanese in Resurgence and the Italians in Defiance. So both of these are pretty cool. They both add some extra alternate history in the first few pages. Mentioning what was happening across the years on the various fronts, and they've introduced more models for most factions, but especially for the factions that they're introducing. There's my little automated carrier, which is one of the things that's in my queue now to get painted. Cool little model. So yeah, overall, I would highly recommend Konflikt 47. For new players, I think it'd be quite an easy rule set to learn and get into, and the models, especially the bolt action side of them, from Warlord, are very affordable. But also for veterans, especially if you've got a bolt action army kicking around already, I would certainly say jump on the Konflikt bandwagon because it's a highly enjoyable game. I think the bolt action rules and the Konflikt rules are both very well balanced, except that the Konflikt units are usually more powerful and more interesting, but not always as reliable. So I think it balances really well. And I have seen full bolt action armies used against more or less full Konflikt armies, and there doesn't seem too much in the way of balance problems, unless you start trying to game the system rules-wise with some of the units that aren't included in here, in which case it can break down a little bit. So what I'm saying, all in all, is that I highly recommend it. It's an excellent game, and if you haven't already, check it out. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments, maybe subscribe for more, and as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.